So at CCIJ, we bring together investigative reporters, data scientists, and visual storytellers as equal partners from the beginning of stories to carry out ongoing investigations into key global issues. And Esther will relatively soon put the link into the chat so you can check out our site at your convenience. We have strong commitments to working with and learning from people in vulnerable communities, to training, and to working with journalists who would not otherwise have had a chance to participate in these kinds of projects. So Gaming the Lottery, our first ongoing project, is an investigation of the global lottery industry. And so at her convenience, Esther will also put in that information. And Matt Kaufman, a colleague and friend who has just joined us, did an important story for that project. We've published more than 170 stories about the lottery in English, French, and German in South Africa, Mali, Switzerland, Bolivia, and the United States. Our current major project, H2O Fail, is an expose of the failure to fulfill the UN guaranteed right to access to clean water for close to 1 billion people around the world. We've published stories in 12 countries, largely in Africa, but also in South America, Asia, and North America. And you'll see and hear more soon in the metaverse space about our most recent story about water issues in the Gambia that Lamin Jahateh wrote and that Jason Florio did a lovely job on the photographs with. Esther will put in the link to that site as well. Our members' work has preceded federal indictments, the formation of a special investigative unit by the South African president, arrests, audits, hearings, and policy changes, and has earned local, national, and international recognition. We have a strong commitment to innovation as well, and that brings us to the creation of what we believe is the first metaverse space for investigative journalism in the world. Our whole team has worked on this in different ways. And for the moment, I'd like to acknowledge our innovation director, Jon Lowenstein, who brought the idea to us last year and advocated strongly for it. He also connected us to Karen Eng and Lenara Verle, the terrifically talented designers who have built the space. You'll hear from Jon and then Karen in a minute. And I want to make sure to say publicly how grateful we are to them and how proud I am of our entire team who worked on the story, the space, and the event. Thank you. I also wanted to thank Civicus Foundation and Anton Harbour, a friend, colleague, and board vice chair who directed us to the funding that made the creation of the space possible. Now, Jon will talk more about this in a minute, and I just want to be clear that for us, the metaverse is important for a number of different reasons. First, it represents an innovative direction in storytelling and distribution that adds to our practice of publishing work we support on our site, in-country publications, through social media, and with news organizations with whom we have standing relationships. The metaverse also represents a way to bring work from independent journalists in Africa and other places to audiences who would not otherwise have seen it. And it also contains the possibility for generating new revenue for the journalists. So we see it as a new revenue possibility. Here is the plan for the next half hour or so. I'll turn over to Jon, who will talk in more detail about CCIJ and the metaverse. Karen will then take us on a tour of the space and invite you to explore it with her. And Jillian Jillian Dudziak will do the driving. Then Lamin Jahateh and Jason Florio and Jon will all chat a bit about the story. And then we will turn to questions. And if you have questions or comments along the way, please send them to Willa Sipple, one of our terrific interns. She's at Q&A-Willa Sipple in terms of her name on the Zoom call. She'll share them with me and we'll work to address them. So thank you again so much for coming. And Jon, over to you.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you so much, Jeff. And thanks to everybody who has worked so hard on this. It's really exciting to launch it today. So what is the metaverse? Because a lot of people probably don't even know what it is yet. But the metaverse is basically a collective virtual space created by the convergence of virtual enhanced physical reality and virtual spaces. And it includes the sum of all virtual worlds, augmented reality, and the internet. And why did we want to create this? Why was this so important? Basically, CCIJ created one of the first journalism spaces in the metaverse as a way to display, connect, and share the work we do in a three-dimensional environment. While traditional web spaces are proficient at presenting text, data, and flat imagery, the metaverse excels at creating an interactive, gaming-like environment. And our new space will allow us also to generate revenue for the individual journalists and the organization by minting their work and selling them as non-fungible tokens or NFTs, which many people probably are starting to become aware of. We see the metaverse as a reflection of the innovative, globally collaborative community we are building at CCIJ. How can this benefit, the journalists in the metaverse? So CCIJ journalists will see multiple benefits from the metaverse. First, they will be able to present their work in ways that are not possible on more traditional web spaces. Second, the metaverse can be a powerful revenue generator for our journalists, many of whom live and work in vulnerable communities and often struggle to find adequate financial support to do in-depth investigative work, which takes a lot of time. And we are creating a new financial model in order to best support them and help them to continue to hold the powerful accountable around the world. So we're really, really exciting. Why is it so exciting? I may have said this, but our space, it's truly interactive. And for us at CCIJ, one of the things that differentiates us from some of the other investigative organizations is that our commitment to telling the visual side of the story is as equal as the data and the investigative side. We are basically the first investigative journalism outfit doing it. And I just felt when, I was speaking with Karen and Lenara, Karen really back in last year, it just blew me away what this spaces are like. And I thought, man, this would be amazing for journalism. And fundamentally, I think it's going to be super exciting. I just finally want to thank Karen Eng and Lenara Verle for making this amazing project happen, and for Scott Lewis for doing such a fantastic job editing, finding photographers, making everything happen, and bringing out the best from everybody on the visual side, and also to Jillian, of course. Okay, so thank you.
All right, no, thank you very much, John. And we'll just turn over to Karen in a second, but just wanted to acknowledge that we have a number of members in our community. Karen Lunga, who's from Zimbabwe and lives and works in the United States. Bernard is here. Eli Ong, a former student of mine who is now just starting to study at Medill. A friend and colleague from South Africa. Benedict, a colleague and friend of John's from France who lives and works in Nigeria. Portia from South Africa and friend. And there's David Dembele was in here earlier, a key team. Oh, here he is. Yeah, David is still here, a key team member from Mali. So we're just very glad everybody's here. We hope it gives a feel of the international community. But now, keeping that in mind, let's turn to Karen. And Karen will split the screen. And as you can see, Karen is using a phone that is from a different vintage. And she will speak from where she is in England. And then Jillian will drive as we welcome you to the metaverse. Karen and Jillian, over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeff. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Can everyone hear me? Okay,
Sounds
hi.
great.
Okay, so
Yes.
fantastic. Yeah, so forgive my ancient technology, but my bandwidth and where I live tends to not be able to handle too many devices at once. And so in order to bring this to you, I'm coming to you from a landline. And Jillian is driving for me. Thank you, Jillian. And that's Jillian's avatar that you're seeing on the screen. She is a Cryptovoxels avatar, and she has dressed herself in these beautiful colors. So we're going to invite everybody here to come into that Cryptovoxels VR space with us in just a few minutes. But I wanted to first start giving you an interview of the gallery and where it sits in Cryptovoxels. So when you look down, you can see CCIJ, and that building there, that square there, is where we have built the gallery. This is a world called Cryptovoxels. It's a multi-user shared VR space that's on 24/7, which is a lot like Minecraft, which you'll probably be familiar with, but it's built on the Ethereum blockchain. And that means that each piece of real estate, which is called a parcel, is purchasable as an NFT, which is a uniquely signed in addition digital asset, which we can talk a little bit more about later. But each of those pieces of land is owned by somebody, and the buildings that you see around there are all created by either the parcel owner or their associates. And this particular world is dedicated so far to digital art. It's mostly populated by digital artists and the creation and exhibition and sale of digital art. And people regularly, 24/7, gather in this world in various parts of it to hang out and enjoy each other's artwork, buy each other's artwork, and just create fantastic spaces for other people to enjoy. All of this is completely open to the public, anybody with a browser, by clicking on cryptovoxels.com. So later we're going to give you a link to join us in the CCIJ VR gallery, but after the event you can feel free to just wander around at will and explore this crazy world. It's massive and you can get lost for hours. You can do this on your mobile phone as well as on your computer, and you do not need an Ethereum wallet unless you decide you'd like to buy yourself or your avatar some clothes, if you want to buy a parcel, or if you want to start buying or selling artworks as NFTs. But one of the reasons why CCIJ chose this virtual world, apart from some of the others that exist, like Decentraland, for example, is its relative accessibility to everyone, even with a mobile phone. Some of the other ones are a little bit harder to access. You have to have a cryptocurrency wallet, or you have to have more processing power. So now we're in front of the parcel, and we can see the whole thing from the avatar eyes view. And so just to give you an overview, CCIJ approached Lenara and me with an idea to create a virtual meeting place that would allow people from all over the world to gather, for journalists to share and sell their work as limited digital editions, again, otherwise known as NFTs or non-fungible tokens. And together we talked to Jon Lowenstein, and we envisioned a space that would have a lobby with a gift shop, a dedicated exhibition gallery space, a cinema space to present videos, and enough space for people to gather for workshops and talks and celebrations and so on, like we're doing right now. And so this is the initial design that we came up with, but everything is basically endlessly configurable to suit our changing needs. And anybody with a parcel and building skills can, endlessly create new spaces for whatever it is they want or need to do. So Lenara is the main builder here. She's a very experienced Cryptovoxels builder, and she created this design based on CCIJ's notes. And Lenara is with us on this call, but she's currently inside Cryptovoxels as Yob. Look for Y0B, and she will help guide you inside there, and I will tell you more about how to do that later. So let's walk in through that front door, well, the side door really of CCIJ, and that's going to take us into the little welcome to CCIJ area. It introduces the organization as a whole to give people an idea of what the organization is and what we do. And we also thought that at some point we're going to put up some shelves, and this could double as a gift shop where CCIJ can sell digital artworks or digital assets to help fund its work, but also just, for fun. So for example, you can see, when you see avatars later, you'll see me later wearing clothes. Those are called wearables. Those are made of voxels, which are like little digital Lego, and you can make anything with voxels. You can make T-shirts, champagne glasses, shoes, just all kinds of crazy stuff that you can then buy and sell and then wear on your avatar's body. So we're going to walk through to the downstairs lobby and turn around. That's me. That's me, and that's Lenara behind me. Lenara is the one who's flying in the air, and that's me wearing the crazy eyeball head. So this is where we have the introductory text for the featured exhibition, which is the pictures will be primarily upstairs, and we'll go there later. So here we go. Bad water, water contamination in the Gambia. This gives your introduction. It introduces the photographer, the journalist, and the people who did the data research for the piece. And hang on just one second. And okay, so if you look also on that introductory text, you can see that there's some text with a link underneath it. So the walls in Cryptovoxels allow live links that visitors can click out to any website. And so if you click on that link, it will take you to the project page on CCIJ's website. And the links can also go to marketplaces from which you can directly buy digital art assets that are displayed on the walls. Okay, now over on this side, we've got the Innovation Hub with the champagne glasses. This is a space where journalists and audiences can gather for workshops and lectures and so on. We can also install a screen here at some point so that people can gather as avatars like we are here within this world so that we can watch live streams, Zoom meetings and lectures and performances and so on. And the champagne glasses that you're looking at are voxel assets that I talked about that you can buy as NFTs and wear on your avatar. And Lenara often makes these for art openings so that people can be festive and walk around with their glasses of wine as they would at any art opening. But in this case, we decided that it would be more appropriate to have muddy water in the glasses to acknowledge the subject of our main exhibition. So from here, we're going to walk into that blue space, into the well. So now we're underwater. And Lenara created this well to represent the story's theme of fresh water. And the wall text here that I put up acknowledges the fact that CCIJ is supporting several investigations into water issues around the world, as John explained before. So again, this link takes visitors out to the CCIJ website where they can read more about this project. You can also enter this well later by falling into it or jumping into it from upstairs, and that's where we'll be later. So from here, we'll walk into the theater space. And we created this space as a place where journalists can show video assets, and it can also serve as another spot for live stream presentations. The videos here were taken by Jason as part of his work on this Gambia story, and we covered a whole wall with one of these videos so that when visitors walk in and immediately trigger that video to play, they can get both an overview of the location as well as feel completely immersed in the story. And later, we can also present documentaries in this way as well for future exhibitions. Okay, so we're going to go back out into the lobby and up the stairs. And while Jillian and I do that, we're going to drop a link in the chat for you. And when you click on it, you're going to join us upstairs in the gallery. Make sure you do this in a new browser window and don't turn off your Zoom. And then when you're in there, on the floor in front of you, there will be instructions for how to navigate. But let me just quickly recap that. So it's WASD or the arrow keys to turn and move. If you find it easier to fly than to walk, hit F, and that'll send you up into the air, or you can press F again to fall to the ground again. If it's easier to navigate in third person, hit C to see yourself in the third person. And then if you get stuck in the navigation and you need your cursor back to do something to unlock your keyboard, hit Escape. Okay, let's see. Yeah, well done. So there's people showing up in here, which is great. Okay, so once you're inside Cryptovoxels, you're going to look for the speech bubble on the lower left of your screen, and that will bring up a chat box. Look for Yob, which is Lenara, and then you can chat with her for guidance, or you can chat with other people who are inside that space. And then sometimes computers, because Zoom and Cryptovoxels both take quite a lot of power, if processing both of these things are taking up too much bandwidth or freaking out your computer, then just go ahead and close your Cryptovoxels window and follow along with our Zoom, because we will continue to screen share and as we hand over to John, Jason, and Lamin to talk about the work. Okay, so I'm going to hand over if everyone's there.
Thank you very much, Karen, for guiding us through, and Jillian for that very skillful navigation, and to everybody else for joining. I just wanted to acknowledge that Atokan is here from Tajikistan. Atokan did an important story for us last year. Winston Mawale, who is the host of our two podcasts, the Waterless Podcast and Transparency Talks, was trying to get in from Malawi and is in. Tobere, a colleague from Nigeria, who's done some very important reporting, gone undercover, powerful work, is there. Ruth Hopkins, a friend and colleague from South Africa, now lives in the Netherlands and has got a very important private security network journalism group that we're working with and going to be going forward with. Paul Tamburello, the one teacher that taught John and my two brothers, has also joined. So we have a wonderful group. I saw Jose came from the European Journalism Organization. So we have a terrific group here. And now, John, that you're in the gallery, John will chat with Lamin and Jason about the story and the work. So John, over to you. Thank you so much.
Okay. we're just really excited to present this work, which was a collective part investigation on the issue of water in the Gambia. So Lamin, can you tell us? There we are. Is Lamin on? Just waiting for Lamin. Is he here?
Yeah, Lamin is
Lamin, you there?
here.
Can we hear?
Yes, I am. I am here now.
Yes.
Lamin,
Okay,
can
great.
you turn on, excuse me, Lamin, can you turn on your video?
Thank you. Are we together?
Yeah. So can you tell? Yeah, there we go. There we go. Great. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Okay, Lamin, can you tell us a little bit about the origins of this project, and just go into a little bit about why you did it, why you thought it was so important, and tell a little bit about the background? That would be fantastic.
Thank you so much. The story started in the Gambia. But I must first say that by the time I was putting up the concept together for this story, Gambia, one of the communities in Gambia was grappling with iron contamination in their water. I mean, it dominated the local media for quite a while, and I thought of upscaling this with the support of CCIJ. I thought of upscaling this to international level. So that's when I started the discussion with Raymond and Jeff about doing the story on water contamination in the Gambia. So the story originally was conceived from a local community, a coastal community in the Gambia of about 15 to 20,000 inhabitants. And it was purely to look at the iron contamination of the water. But however, when we started doing this story, and when we began to do the research proper, we realized that, I mean, the story was much more bigger than just one community. We realized that, in fact, the water contamination in the Gambia, it's a national problem. And it was much more serious than just iron contamination. Iron, we know, has some cosmetic effects, except if you consume it to a certain extent, that's when it begins to have some health complications. But we realized that not just iron, there is now nitrate contamination, there is E. coli contamination. And consuming water with all these elements have immediate health complications. So therefore, the story changed, the story angle changed a little bit. We began to focus on the E. coli and the nitrate contamination. And based on the statistic that is discovered by our researchers, 73% of water that is at household level, that is consumed at household level, is contaminated by E. coli. And E. coli, like I said, is a serious bacteria that can cause diarrhea, abdominal pain, pneumonia. Then we change the angle of the story to follow what the data is leading us to. That's when we began to follow the E. coli and the nitrate contamination. And here is the paradox. If you know a little bit about the Gambia, the main source of water supply for the Gambia is from the underground water. The household water is supplied in the Gambia from underground water. And based on the scientific evidence that we have, that we saw, underground water is one of the cleanest and most purest form of water for consumption. But here is Gambia, relying from the same underground water, and 73% of the household using that water is contaminated. So how was the water contaminated? Became the subject of inquiry or the subject of investigation for the story. And when we began the investigation, we found out that some key elements are responsible for this. One, the water system in the Gambia is supplied by the national water, is supplied by the government. And through the government, there is a special company that is in charge of what is called the water and sewage system. We realize that the water and sewage infrastructure in the Gambia, it's very old, it's very archaic. Some of these infrastructural systems were installed during the colonial days. And since the Gambia gained independence, by the way, that means most of this infrastructure were not changed. And the Gambia gained independence in 1965. Since 1965, we've been using some of the same water system. But even the new system that is installed, aware of low quality, easily get corroded. And because of that, you have some chemical elements that leach in the water that goes to the household for consumption. But in addition to that, perhaps one of the biggest problems is feces contamination. The human feces is finding its way into our water system. That is due to many reasons. One of the reasons is based on the health statistics, there is relatively low level of hand washing in the Gambia. So when people use the toilet, upon leaving the toilet without using their hands with soap and water, they go and have contact with the household water. Therefore, E. coli is transferred. But in addition to that, if you look at some of the visuals, some of the powerful visuals, photographs that go with this story, you realize that there's the sewage system. We have a system where due to the obsolete nature of the sewage system and the water system, the water pipes, the water infrastructure will burst, the sewage pipe also will burst, and along the line, the water from the sewage and the water from the pipe system mix. Because of that, the sewage water gets contaminate the water that goes into our household. And the animals we can see in the pictures also, they are household animals. They go into the sewage system, interact with the water, and they come into our household, and for one reason or the other, we have contact with them. This also contaminates, is always one of the sources of contaminants in our household drinking water. So this is so serious. Because of this, if you look at the disease burden that is caused by this, that is caused by E. coli, you realize that, for example, diarrhea, according to WHO, E. coli is one of the main causes of diarrhea in developing countries like the Gambia. And in the Gambia, diarrhea has become, even though the burden is reducing, diarrhea has become the 8th highest killer. And that is even when it reduced. There was a time diarrhea was the 4th, even the 5th largest killer in the Gambia. But in addition to diarrhea, there is a lot of cases of abdominal pain in our hospital. The incidence of pneumonia are all increasing. And these are all health consequences of, consuming water that is contaminated with E. coli or nitrate. But the health or the scientific community in the Gambia is not advanced to a stage that it's difficult to say what strain of the virus caused diarrhea or what strain of the virus and bacteria causes pneumonia. Therefore, in the course of investigation, we find it difficult to hold, let's say, E. coli is responsible for all these diseases burden. But however, we know, according to scientific records, it is one of the main sources. Therefore, we could safely say that the water that we are consuming in our household, the contaminated water that we consume in our household, is to a large extent responsible and blamed for the high disease burden, particularly diseases that are waterborne and caused by E. coli. My colleague that I work with on this story, Jason, will come in on the dimension of the photographs. And by the way, I must add that Jason was so very helpful, super helpful. It wasn't just snapping the visuals, but he was also so amazing in terms of support, the write-up, sharing contacts, going to places. And also at this point, I want to thank my team of researchers, editors, and data visualizers, Raymond, Yossi, and the team out there. Their support made this story so amazing. Thank you to all of you.
Thank you. Yes, so that was awesome. So Jason, how did you what was it like when you found out that this was going to be a project, and how did that develop, and how did you go about taking the pictures that represented the story that Lamin researched?
I think, yeah, firstly, it was, I love, getting these stories that are on my own doorstep, and they affect me directly. I live here in the Gambia, and I drink, Gambian water every day. And I was seriously shocked when I saw the data that we were being, that's being shared to us. So yeah, Lam and I, we really worked hand in glove on this. And at first we thought, well, the focus was on Gunjur and the idea of the iron contamination. So I was trying to find images, obvious things like broken pipes, which would show kind of leaching into the water system. But once we sort of pushed further into it and realized the story was, a lot of it was to do with the E. coli and the nitrates, I actually looked really on my own doorstep. I live next to quite a dense urban settlement called Bakau. It's one of the oldest settlements in the Gambia. And the image of the sheep is just about, about a kilometer from my house. And this image relates directly to what Lamin was talking about. There's this sort of like perfect storm as such, where you've got an open sewage system all around the village or town of Bakau, and in the background it's not quite clear, but in the captions you'll understand that there is a mosque, and because of the lack of water supply by the national provider, a lot of people are digging their own boreholes. And so this borehole that's right next to the mosque, which supplies water to the local community, is, there's a good chance that this raw sewage is being leached into the borehole that people are drinking. And obviously the contamination from the animals, which are left to roam during the day. So that this image to me was really indicative and quite literal to the situation that's going on as far as the E. coli and the nitrates.
Yeah, no, that's super. What I love about the work that you both did, and I think this is really reflected in the two sites, is that when you go to the traditional CCIJ site, you see the graphs and you see the data and you see the amazing story that they wrote. And then when you go to the metaverse, you feel like you're inside and you're in the Gambia, just like experiencing life in the place. And the photograph in the middle that you made is incredibly powerful for that reason. You just feel like you're right on the doorstep. And I love that you live right near there too. So it's really, it's just, this I think is a great example of the synergy between the two worlds. What was the impact of the story? Can you guys speak to that a little bit?
I think, yeah, Lamin, let's pass over to you on that as the real local.
Because we really want to know the impact.
Thank you. For me, one of the greatest impact is even the authorities that at some point I was interacting with in the course of gathering the data. When I was done with the story research, the story writing, when the final product was out, some of them called me to say, of course, they knew there was a problem with the water system, but they did not know alerting the story was. Like even the authorities did not know that the water system, the problem in the water system has reached certain magnitude, like the story discovered. For me, that is one of the biggest impact. It alerted even the authorities to know the real situation. And for the citizens, some of them now began to realize. I remember one particular guy who came out to me, and for me, this is so amazing. The guy came out to me to say, look, I have been having stomach problem for some time now, but I never realized, or I never linked this to the water that I've been drinking. But after reading your story, I began to reflect and I realized that perhaps the problem that I was having, it's a problem that is due to the water that I was drinking. So that is also so educative. That is, for me, these key things summarize the impact of the story. And when it was out, I mean, it was shared by a lot of people, both on social media, offline, on the radio station. A lot of the local media jumped at this story.
That's fantastic. And how was CCIJ's funding and virtual newsroom support critical to the success of telling this story and disseminating and actually getting it out, both in country and or internationally? Can you guys speak a little bit to that?
I must so wonderfully well thank, I mean, Jeff, the open media support, I mean, for all those who were technically behind this story, both financially and technically, because it was only through that support we were able to tell this story. Like I said, the local media was reporting this story, but the entire focus was on just one community, and it was just a problem of iron in a small coastal community. Yeah. It was through this support we were able to launch into this story at a national scale. And it was only through that funding that the international community was also alerted to the realities that are happening into this country. So this is largely possible because of the CCIJ support. Great,
thank you. And Jason, can you talk a little bit about the photograph of the boy in front of the laundry and why that is so, to me, that picture is so powerful because it goes a little bit beyond even the more literal photographs. And I think for us at CCIJ, we're really interested in creating lyrical photographs. And we love this picture. Can you talk a little bit about it? To me, it just sums up the whole issue, which is,
absolutely.
Can you speak to that? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, it wasn't, I mean, it's something that sort of just occurred when we were doing our research down in Gunjur. And at first I didn't quite sort of see the depth of sort of symbolism in the picture. And it was thanks to you guys, to John and Scott for, for seeing the layers in the image. But this is a very typical compound in the Gambia. You can see, there's buckets laying around, which is this sort of point of often of cross-contamination from people taking water from communal taps. But to me, I think the image itself, what the power in it really speaks to this idea of vulnerability of the youth. As Lamin mentioned, diarrhea is one of the highest, I think it might be the highest killer of children under 5 in the Gambia. So to me, the image was very reflective of the situation in the country, and this sort of young boy here is he sort of represents all the youth that are not to repeat myself, but are vulnerable.
No, we love it, and so many of the pictures really describe and get you into the place. I'd like to point out that in the metaverse, what's so fantastic about it, in terms of being an international global organization that collaborates with people all over, is we can rebuild the space every single time differently, as opposed to brick and mortar spaces where you sort of pay a ton of money to get a physical space that only people in the local community can access. We can rebuild this completely different. And I think every time, whatever we want to do, and I think that is going to be really exciting as we move forward. Additionally, we can, in the future, take the metaverse space and basically connect that to real world physical spaces like galleries, walls, any way we want to project. And so the synergy between, this is really just the beginning, the synergy between the physical, the virtual world and the physical world, I think are coming together for all of us, especially during this time of COVID. It's really hit home. And this metaverse space, I believe, is just the beginning and going to be a fantastic opportunity to communicate, bring people together, and frankly, support incredible work like Lamin and Jason's work. So thanks so much. Great work, you guys.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. It's just incredible to, like I said earlier, I think to going from sort of being a print journalist in the early days to now suddenly going into this 3D.
I think it was an amazing opportunity.
Phenomenal.
And working together with Jason also was so refreshing. Thank you so much, Jason.
Thank you, Lamin. Looking forward to doing more with you.
Yeah, we're excited to do more with both of you guys. Okay, great.
Well, thank you, John and Jason and Lamin for guiding us through a really stimulating discussion about the work, about how it came about, and I really appreciate your question and Lamin, even in your initial comments, highlighting the teamwork, because this was very much a team effort. Ray, who was our Southern African hub editor, was doing that editorial work from South Africa. Yushi, who found the study that led to some of that data analysis that expanded the focus of the story. She's from China. She lived in Nigeria. She learned to code in South Africa, and now she lives in Canada. She worked with Hazel, who's our data editor, and Hazel is from Costa Rica, lives and works in Mexico. Scott, who really worked very closely with Jason to go from the initial shoots, and Jason was incredibly accessible to continue to shoot as the project went on, to expand from the initial types of images to then those more lyrical ones that John, you highlighted. Scott's in Philadelphia. Jason is from the UK and lives in Gambia, and Lamin is from the Gambia. So this was the team that put together this project. Jillian, our designer, is in the United States, who's been driving. So I just wanted to highlight that before starting to shift to questions. And I also wanted to acknowledge that Sharon McGowan, a friend and colleague who used to work at the Chicago Reporter and is now with the Institute for Nonprofit News, with whom we collaborate on the Tapped Out initiative earlier this year, is on, and Anton Harbour has joined us from South Africa. And I also, just before we shift to the questions, did want to mention that in addition to all the team members, kind of the core team members, our interns, our interns, Willa Sipple and Kira Steck, did a lot of work in helping to make this event possible, as well as Esther Herr, who is our project manager, and came in, and the quality of work that the journalists have been able to do with the systems that Esther has put in place is much higher, thanks to that level of organization that she let us in before, when I was actually doing that part of the work. So thank you, Esther. So thank everybody. I thank everybody very much. And we did want to turn now, if anybody had questions or comments or kind of responses that people wanted to put in the chat, or just ask, please either put them in the chat or ask Willa, and then we'll just chat for a little bit, and then we'll go on our way. But you do have the link, so you can explore at your leisure. So questions or comments or responses for anybody, please?
Well, I have one question that was sent to me. And I was wondering if Jason, if you could talk about the center photo on the metaverse wall a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. So over to you, Jason. Is that the one with the sheep, Willa? Is that what
I
you're thinking?
believe so, yes.
Yeah. Okay. You spoke a bit about it, Jason, but perhaps some more detail about that image, please.
Sure. So yeah, as I'd mentioned earlier, it's the image was made in Bakau, which is it was a very old village, but it's part of the urban sprawl that's happening all around the Gambia, so around this region of the Gambia. And the image really speaks about the issues of E. coli and nitrates. So the nitrate that's appearing in the water is coming from the leaching of septic tanks and soakaways, which are the sort of traditional toilets that people use. And the boreholes are being dug kind of all over because of the lack of consistent water provided by the national water provider. But because of the proximity of the toilets and the boreholes, which people are drawing their fresh water from, the boreholes are untreated, so the nitrates are leaching into the water. So this is what this picture particularly speaks of. I hope that's clear.
Okay. Thank you. And we have about 2 more minutes. I did want to mention also that Juliana Thornton, who's our development director, helped with the application involved in getting the funding from Civicus that Anton alerted us to, and that we were able to secure, that then made this possible. But any final thoughts, questions? As John said, we really see this at the beginning, but yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, Winston Mwale here from Malawi.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I think I joined late. Maybe this question was already responded to. I've tried to go on the platform, but it appears that it requires people to sign in. How do we go about, and what happens after?
Okay, thank you, Winston. And Winston, as I mentioned, is from Malawi and is the host of our 2 podcasts. Karen or John, access, I haven't encountered a need to sign in, but any ideas of what Winston might be experiencing? And then Moses has a quick question about money raised for the investigation by NFTs, which we can speak to as well. But Karen, thoughts about that, the challenge that Winston experienced?
I've never actually encountered that. Usually when you just use a browser, and typically we use Chrome browsers, you should just be able to type in the link and get into Cryptovoxels without having any kind of sign-in issues. If Lenara is online, she might be able to. She knows a different answer, but as far as I know, that should not be an issue.
Yeah, you can just access directly. Maybe the link, if the link that you clicked on may be directing to a different place, but if it's a direct link to inside the world, like the one that was shared in the chat, I think it was a bit.ly, because the links are pretty long. It says, like, has the coordinates of the space, but if it's a direct link, you just pop in and you don't need to sign in.
Okay, so thank you. And Winston,
Okay,
we'll make sure.
Thanks.
Yeah, we'll make sure you get the link again, and we'll try and resolve whatever issue you've raised. So the last questions that we'll address, and then we'll wrap up. Moses, explain how money is raised for the investigation by NFT, what NFT is being sold at what price. If somebody wants to buy the investigator, pay the investigator via NFT, which NFT to buy and what is the price? As John said, Moses, this is just the beginning for us, so we will be working to add the NFTs, and then there's a sort of a negotiation around what things actually go for. Karen, might you be able, or Lenara, talk a little bit about the NFTs and how that works? I know you've done some work, Karen, with artists in South America. Might you talk a little bit about that, Karen?
Yes, so basically blockchain technology makes it possible to edition works as a digital asset, just as we would edition works as a print asset, which we're all familiar with. And so the idea is to create a shop on one of the NFT blockchain platforms, which we actually have already done for CCIJ on mintbase.io. And that runs on a blockchain called Near, which is actually I think third generation blockchain, which is energy efficient and so therefore much more green than the media would have you believe. The idea is to onboard journalists to this blockchain so that they can mint their own assets with their own contracts, which is basically like creating a digital signature, and so they can edition their own works. And these will be sold, I think, through the CCIJ shop, and CCIJ will also have their own contract. And the reason why we're choosing this platform is because it allows for splits in profits. And so when CCIJ and the journalists decide how their NFTs, how their assets will be sold, and what proportion of profits will go to which party, then that way it creates the possibility for not only bringing in revenue for CCIJ and the work that they do, but also creating the possibility for journalists to have their own revenue stream, and also teaching them how to use blockchain technology to own their own digital assets, their own photography assets online, if that makes sense.
No, that does. And that speaks to Esther, just so everybody sees. Esther has posted the link again in the chat. So perhaps, Winston, you can try that. And if not, we'll still find a way to make it work. And Kirk had a series of kind of related questions about how does this work and so on. And are the number of copies limited? So that's part of what we're figuring out. But I can certainly say that we want to make sure that it's equitable and that it is fair to the journalists, so that it is a way for the journalists to really find additional sources of revenue. I didn't know, Karen, if you had any quick responses to what Kirk was saying about how does this work for journalist or team? Are the number of copies limited? The thoughts about how it's played out in other places, understanding that we're getting into it.
Typically, each journalist has control over how they would like to edition their work, how they would like to price it, how they would like to share profits with a collaborator. And so the great thing about this technology is that it does give the control directly to the artist. And so really nothing can happen unless the artist, makes it so. And so really it's just, we're in the process of figuring out exactly how the relationship with CCIJ is going to work. But once we train photojournalists on how to mint their own work on the blockchain, they will actually just have total control over that. And then after that, it'll just be a matter of figuring out, just as with any gallery, I suppose, how the relationship will work.
Yeah. So no, and that's a really important point as we wrap up, that we're gonna work together to think this through and do it in an equitable way and continue to grow in this area. So I know that Dunreath passed a comment about enjoying the skateboarding, and Lenara saying virtual skateboarding is easier than in real life. So thank you. And we will stop there. Does anybody have a final comment before we go, or you have the link, you're welcome to explore, and we really appreciate your coming and look forward to being in touch. But did anybody have a final comment before we close off? I didn't want to shut anybody off. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you so much for coming. And we look forward to being in touch. But thank you, team. Thank you, Jason and Lamin. And thank you, of course, everybody for coming. Thank you so much.